Today, the director of Call of Duty has some choice advice on forcing public opinion to love you. This is CheckPoint. Welcome to CheckPoint, where we're decoding all the engrams.
Unfortunately, you got a gaming news commentary show, not that legendary helmet you really wanted.
Sorry. Hironobu Sakaguchi's new game, TERRA Battle, is coming to iOS and Android on October 9th, and it's a free download, but not only does it look neat, Sakaguchi's studio Mistwalker has a unique way of promoting it. The more people that download the title, the more new content and characters will be added to the game. For example, at 100,000 downloads, Nobuo Uematsu will make more music. At 300,000 downloads, mangaka Nakaba Suzuki will create 2 new characters. At 1.5 million downloads, there will be a new game content added, etc., etc., etc. You know what? A+, Mistwalker. Free-to-play games are already pesting their players to spam their friends with invites, but the only thing those games are offering is shame. Now, nobody tell Mistwalker about App Store download bots.
Indie dev Might and Delight has delayed Shelter 2 until 2015. The game is a wilderness survival game that puts you in the role of a mother lynx protecting and taking care of your 3 adorable baby lynx cubs through tough wintry conditions. I'm glad they're delaying the game to make sure it's polished as it can be, but also because I do not actually want to play that game. Look at this teaser. If that baby lynx doesn't survive, I will die. I'm tearing up just thinking about that little pile of pixels not surviving the winter. I need to hug a cat now, please.
Everyone's having a blast with Shadow of Mordor, but if you're playing on PC and want the full look how cool I am PC gamer experience, you can download the game's HD texture pack. You need the 64-bit version of Windows 7 or 8, 8 gigs of system RAM, and 6 gigs of video RAM for textures that look, let's be honest, still only slightly sharper than the PS4's 1080p version. Of course, let's not forget that the Xbox One version is running at Checkpoint's favorite made-up resolution of 900p, and that's with making use of that extra 10% of the CPU that was freed up when they stopped making the Kinect mandatory. Without it, Monolith admits that there would have been, quote, serious frame rate issues. We think the PC versus console debate is largely a waste of time that comes down exclusively to personal preference, and it's even more pointless these days, but I guess that's unless you have an Xbox One.
If you felt a great disturbance in the Force, as if millions of citizens suddenly cried out in terror and were suddenly silenced last week, you were onto something. Much like the Death Star obliterated Alderaan, Disney Interactive has erased Star Wars Assault Team and Tiny Death Star from the App Store, Google Play, and just to be cruel, the Windows Store. But wait, it gets worse. The quite popular Tiny Death Star was, as you might remember, a spin-off of Nimblebit's indie hit Tiny Tower. And according to Nimblebit, they only found out that Disney was nuking the game when it was no longer on the App Store. But wait, it gets worse again! As Nimblebit co-founder Ian Marsh told Pocket Gamer, Tiny Death Star was a significant source of revenue for us, so it stings that much more. So to recap, Disney, full dark side.
As part of a presentation to political think tank The Atlantic Council, Call of Duty Black Ops writer and director Dave Anthony shared some quite frank words about marketing Activision's tentpole franchise. He said, "We market it, and we market it as much as we can, so that whether people like it or not, we do all the things we can to essentially brainwash people into liking it before it actually comes out." Which could certainly explain the rabid fanboyism of some Call of Duty players. They've been brainwashed. Anthony then goes on to say that he'd like to see this tactic applied to public opinion of the government because, quote, "the government is becoming more and more unpopular and I have a lot of sympathy for it." He recommended putting U.S. soldiers undercover in schools to prevent terrorist attacks, admitting that the public wouldn't like this idea because the public would probably think this was a police state. Likely because having government officials acting undercover in day-to-day life is what the East German Stasi did. It's the kind of thing dystopian science fiction uses to show a grim future. But Anthony added that with the right marketing, this presumed public backlash was, quote, "a solvable problem." The really scary part about this is that if we criticize this frankly horrifying outlook on marketing the government from the director of Call of Duty, some percentage of our viewers will dismiss our concerns outright by calling us Battlefield fanboys.
Hey, Graham.
What's up?
Who's that guy who came in here and we started bad-mouthing Activision and their terrifying take on the police state?
Oh, I don't recognize him, but he looks like he's supposed to be here.
Great! Coming up, if you have $750 and want a 2.5-foot tall statue of a monster from a game that hasn't even come out yet, well, you can buy that. God only knows why you'd want to, but who am I to judge, and I don't know what your garden looks like, so I am not going to play it because those
Because
are...
you're going to lose the cub and then you will lose your mind.
I will lose my mind.